know, we are in campaign management for marketing. I'm glad we had a nice little introduction before talking about what we are going to learn today. Basically, we're going to do a little bit of portfolio, kind of high level program management at the beginning, and then we're going to transition into that little bit more data heavy that we talked about just before the recording started. And as always, I do need to share this legal slide with you. It simply says that if I make any forward-looking statements, that Smartsheet is not financially responsible for any purchases you make based upon those forward-looking statements. And again, that's just because I am not always sure exactly when things are going to be released. So we would not want you to make a large decision when we can't guarantee it might happen by the time your purchase goes through. Excellent. So lastly, this recording is going to be available after this course. It is going to be available for 30 days. You can watch it as many times as you like for those 30 days. And again, if you wanted to put any questions in the Q&A, those will be available after the recording. So let's get going. The first thing we're going to talk about is the visualization of data. So we are working with Don Miller. He is working with campaigns at Alta Vista Village. And what we're going to do is he has a sheet tracking all of the campaigns and all of the metrics associated with those. What does that mean? We're going to go over that sheet in a second. But basically, each new row is going to be a campaign. Excellent. So let's take a quick peek at that sheet right now. I'm going to go into my folder for campaign metrics, and I'm going to click on this. I'm going to open up just the marketing campaign tracking sheet right now. So this is the sheet. Nothing incredibly robust. As you can see, we have our very uniquely titled campaigns 1 through 14. And the way we've started to organize this is we have all of our parent-child relationships set up by quarter. So we have the year 2020 and all of the campaigns we plan on running each quarter. We do have 2 date columns. It says campaign start date and campaign end date. So these are the dates that they are going to be running, not necessarily the prep time it is going to take for that campaign. So that's something that I do like to differentiate, because this is not a true project management sheet the way you were working with if you had taken the event management class. That was, an event by event. You're looking at the entire event and all the steps that lead up to it. This is definitely the program management roll-up. So again, each campaign has its own line. We also wanted to talk about how we can incorporate a RACI model. I don't know if that's anything that you might use in your own organizations, but RACI, R-A-C-I, is an agile method, and it stands for just what I have here: responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. There might be multiple people responsible for completing this campaign, and if I wanted to add myself here, there we go, at demo. I'm a little bit too zoomed in to find my email address, but here we are. There it is. I can add multiple people in that column. So those are the people responsible for making sure campaign 1 gets off the ground. However, the people who are accountable are a single person. So I like to have like a little bit of dark humor here, that if campaign 1 doesn't get off the ground, if campaign 1 does not launch on January 2nd, whose single head fits in the guillotine? That's the accountable person. That is the person that needs to make sure everything is done properly. But Don probably has people that he consults and that he informs. consulted people probably are going to have a little bit more say in what goes on. And then people who are informed are probably your senior leadership team. Excellent. We also have a few statuses, and why I want to call out these statuses is that they are going to be they are going to help us a little bit later in some of the reports that we make and in some of the understanding of what metrics are we currently trying to collect. So, not started, in progress, delayed, canceled, or complete. Excellent. So that's just the sheet set up right now. And we can come over here to the side and we can look at the different channels if you have different channels and different content types depending on how you're distributing your content. Any questions so far?
No.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Beautiful. So I'm going to save this for just a moment. I'm going to go back to these activities. And the first thing that we are actually going to do is we are going to visualize the campaigns as cards and customize the data that appears on there. Have either of you worked in card view before?
Sometimes, yes. I don't use it so much, but sometimes I did it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen it this week. I've never worked in it, but I do know what it is. So
Excellent. So, good thing. We're actually going to do that today. We're going to talk about the way cards move. We're going to talk about what these levels are as well. So, I'm going to ask that you do this activity alongside me. Just this first one. We're going to open up card view and look at the levels. So I'm going to go back into Smartsheet. I'm actually going to duplicate this for a moment. Excellent. Right now, we're looking at everything in this traditional grid view. I'm going to come over to the upper left corner of my screen. I'm going to open up this drop-down and choose Card View. So Card View is taking each row, and what it's doing is it's making one card. And that's kind of it. But what's powerful about it is that if I open up this uncategorized area, we can move cards into different areas. So what are we looking at here? We see campaign 7, and you can see this little item above it says Q2, and that means that Q2 is its parent row. So what we actually want to focus on is not these parent rows. We don't want to actually assign a status to anything that is just a time indicator. So I kind of want to, quote unquote, filter those out. And I use quote unquote for a very specific reason. Card view is set up by a single select dropdown and based upon hierarchy. If I choose just level 1 items, that means just my 2020 row is going to appear. So if we take a moment, we just flip back to grid view, this is the only card right now. It's our top level 1 row. Level 2 are these kind of children. So let's go back to card view. I want to see level 2 cards and their subtasks. I can click on this link. And when I do, I now can see all of my numbered campaigns right here. So we want to assign values to cards that might be uncategorized. And we also want to change data that appears on each card. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to that level dropdown and choose level 3 cards. Now I see everything. I'm going to zoom out for just a little bit. There, now I see all of my campaigns in front of me. I can move these items over. Pardon me. For instance, this Q1 campaign was canceled. this Q2 campaign was delayed. And if we look at this Q3 campaign, notice it has a start date of Saturday. Q3 is already passed. I'm going to take a guess that I can drag that over to the complete column. So it's a nice click and drag. But I had to take a guess. I didn't know exactly when that was completed or ended. Pardon me, I'm just seeing something from a teammate. There we go. Excellent. I don't know exactly what date this ended, so I want to change some information on here. But before we do that, are there any questions about card view as I have explained it? Is there anything else you want to ask?
No, it's
I'm good.
quite clear. Quite clear. Interesting, the level view. Quite interesting.
Yeah, and the level view is nice, but we didn't go over this one quite yet. I think this one will be interesting in a little bit. Let's sneak peek at it. Because we used accountable as a single select dropdown, and that's why I discussed the RACI model. Accountable is single select. The responsible, consulted, and informed are multi-select contact columns. I can choose accountable, and I can see Don Miller is the only person here who is responsible for these campaigns. If we had other people who were accountable, their names would also appear in these swim lanes. So it's also a nice way to see what everyone's workload is line by line. If I wanted to know what type of channel we were doing, it looks like we're doing a lot of pay per click. So that's a nice way to flip through things. So you can have multiple drop-down menus, and that can help you look at your information in a different way. And I'm a big tactile person. I like having to touch things. Buying clothes online is frustrating for me. I need to touch it. I need to try it on before I bring it home. I like card view kind of for that reason. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to customize the data that appears on each card. And then we're going to assign campaign statuses using card view. So we're going to do these two activities together. Then there are two more activities that I'm going to ask that you try on your own a little bit. So first, we're going to customize what appears on each of the cards. I'm going to go to the gear icon in the upper right corner of the screen where my mouse is flashing and click on the gear icon. Now you can have up to 9 fields on each card. Today, we want to know a few different things. I don't need to know all the details of the campaign, so I'm going to uncheck that. I could have the campaign status. Most likely, I'm going to utilize the view by area. So I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to want to know who's responsible. What team is actually working on that campaign? I want to see everybody's name. I said before, I do want to know the start date, but I also want to know the end date. I want to know if I should be moving these over and flipping their status. I'd also like to know what the channel is that we plan on launching these and what the content type is. And I'm going to click OK. So now we have some more information. And if we look at this card in particular, that's where I added my name. So we can see multiple people working on campaign 1, not just Blair and Don, but I'm in there as well. So if you ever wanted to change anything on this card, right here, you cannot. However, you can double click on the card and open up this information. So I can come down here and choose maybe to remove myself, add myself back in, what have you. Any notes that might need to be here, any comments or conversations that I want to have on that particular row/card will happen here in a concise manner. So that's really neat. Any art that might be here, I have attachments. So that's good to know that you actually do not have to flip back and forth between grid and card view in order to edit information. All right. So we're going to assign campaigns to a status next. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions on the way we looked at the card?
Okay, for me.
Nope, I'm good.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. All right. So we're going to assign campaigns to a status using this card view. Now, I did want to walk this one through with you because in order for some reports to work later, we might need to manipulate a little bit of data. And that's okay. We're going to click and drag some campaigns to where they are appropriate. So Q3, this campaign is complete, so I'm going to drag it over into complete. But I definitely want to make sure some of my Q4 campaigns are in progress. Notice they don't have dates. We're going to have to go back in and add that. We're going to say that this potential Q4 campaign is just definitely not started. That's our last one of the year, our December campaign. We're going to leave it. And maybe we're going to move some over to delayed and canceled that were in Q2 and Q3. But I do want to emphasize we're going to amend some of the dates in Q4. So I'm going to give you a moment just to drag and drop the cards around. When you feel good, let me know.
Okay.
Great.
Yep, I'm good.
So we're going to do ourselves a favor. We're going to go back to the grid view. And we're going to notice that here, I'm going to save this and I'm actually going to refresh because my columns are askew. There we go. We are going to add just whole months in the end here. I'm going to say 10/1, 10/31. I'm going to add 11/1. How many days does November have? Here I am forgetting. I can use this. So let's just use whole months where we pick one for December, one for each of the other months as well. Apologies for a little bit of that prep. I'm going to change the template next time. But this is going to be important for us because all of these are either in progress or not started. So they are active. And this campaign 11 is complete. And I do want to emphasize that the 30th is less than 30 days away. Less than 30 days away in the past. All right. Any questions about the data that we just added?
No.
Awesome.
Nope.
The beginning of this class is a little bit light, and I'm trying to make sure that we go through it quickly so that we do get into those cool reports and really cool data management that we talked about earlier. So, have either of you used conditional formatting in Smartsheet before?
Yes.
Yes, a little.
Absolutely. In everything.
Fantastic. So our next two activities, I do think you would be able to do on your own. So we can take 5 minutes to do that. The task is to color code the cards by channel. So if you have used conditional formatting, this probably looks familiar. And instead of you hearing my voice go on and on about it, you can also switch to this calendar view and you can look at the campaigns as they have been color coded. So at this point, does anyone have any questions?
No.
Excellent.
Nope.
I'm fixing one more thing. There we go. I'm going to click OK because I did this on my other screen. So you guys had the clock. Color coding by channel, pretty neat. You change just the taskbar to the color, which is nice because if we come back to, and I'm going to refresh this so all of my changes come over. We have all our color coding on just the bar, but if we were to look in grid view, excuse me, hiccup, we're not distorting any colors here on the actual grid view. So we're not looking at a giant brown line. That brown line is only here for our content marketing and SEO. And then just to show all that utilization, we can flip into this calendar view. Did anyone have any questions about that, or was that all good?
I lost the second step of the setup calendar view. Use the drop-down toolbar in the calendar view. In the calendar setting, we select the lower radio button. I can find it.
Okay, sure. In the settings, here in the upper right corner,
Okay.
this might already be set up for you, but this is that first radio button. This is the second radio button.
Okay, that's right. Sorry, it's in Italian. It's a bit different.
You're translating in your head. Yes, you're doing the talented thing.
I do double work.
Oh my goodness, good for you.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, unfortunately, I did not take Italian at any point. I took French, so I couldn't even try and find a synonym
I
for
should switch
you.
the language the next time. I always forget. I should switch the language before the lesson, but I forget every time. So
don't worry. Excellent. And everything was fine with you, Patty?
Everything's good.
Beautiful. All right. So we're going to start with our first formula today, and this one's just a warm-up. How comfortable are both of you with formulas, by the way?
I'm good.
I use it in Excel, not so much in Smartsheet. I used it sometimes, but not so much still.
Okay, great. So we are actually going to use a Smartsheet specific formula. This does not exist in Excel. So for anybody who says, I can do this in Excel, technically this one, they can't quite do it the same.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we're going to put something in that details column. And when we are reporting, if you have used row reports before, you can't include hierarchy in there. And that is frustrating to some people because they want to know, all right, I'm looking at campaign 6, but what quarter does that fall in? They don't actually know. So we're going to do ourselves a little bit of a favor, and we're going to add a join ancestors column into that details column. And what that's going to give us is 2020/Q1. I'm going to build this. You can watch me build this, ask all of your questions, and then you can build it on your own. If you want, take a couple times to do it. But we're also going to add a new step into this. This is new to this class because Smartsheet just released column formulas, and they're really powerful. And we're going to talk a little bit about why in a moment. Have either of you used hierarchy formulas before?
No.
No.
Beautiful. Look, new things, guys. So we're going to go back into Smartsheet. And again, you can watch me do this first. We're going to focus in this details column here. Now, if you are familiar with Excel, the join function in Smartsheet is very similar to concatenate. So I'm going to start with equals, join, and I can choose potentially a range. I used to use concatenate a lot when I was a marketing assistant because sometimes I needed to join people's first names and last names. But what we're noticing here in this join, and we just picked a group of cells to pull together, campaign title through campaign status at this row. There's nothing spacing between those. Plus, at row. That might be new for you guys, so we're going to talk through some of this. Smartsheet is now, I'm not going to do join, Smartsheet is now choosing that if you click on the row that you are working in, you're going to use this at row functionality. There are a few reasons for at row being helpful to you and not using a number. First of all, if you are starting to make formulas, it helps keep you a little bit more aligned because how many times have you gone and tried to find a cell and then you're clicking over here, you got equals, you click over here quickly, you press enter, and technically you're on a diagonal and you're not working within the row you truly intend. So @row keeps you honest. Number 2, @row is going to save time both for loading and saving. So when Smartsheet is calculating some of those cells, it is individually going through, looking at row 4 to find information, looking at row 5 to find information. Using @row, and now Smartsheet's helping you do that automatically, is going to help, again, that saving and loading time so Smartsheet doesn't have to make 20 to 200 individual calculations each time you save. So that's why when I started using the join function, @row came into play. Any questions about join, the join function, or using @row?
No.
Excellent.
No.
Beautiful. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the range. So the range is that group of cells to join. And that's why I really love Smartsheet, because it spells out everything here for you. That is one of the ways that I learned formulas, also bribing my husband with wine. But the range is the group of cells that we want to pull together. And in our case, we are not looking up. This would not be effective, because once we started pulling information here, we would get to campaign 3, and our year and the right quarter would fall off. So our range is, oops, excuse me, muscle memory there. Our range is actually going to be a Smartsheet function called ancestors. You do use these hierarchy functions within another formula. And right now we are saying, what are the ancestors? And I'm going to pick a cell. What are the ancestors of the campaign title at this particular row? I'm going to close this up. I'm not going to add the delimiter yet. We're going to help ourselves next. But now I see that campaign 1 and through 5 have 2020 as their highest level parent and Q1 as the parent above that. But this is probably a frustrating looking metric, so we're going to use a delimiter next to separate out that information. So I'm going to delete that parentheses. Range is highlighted right now. I'm going to add a comma, follow my yellow brick road, and then, as you can see right here, we can add a comma, hyphen, or a space. We're going to add a slash. So I'm going to put a quotation mark, a space, a slash, another space, and a quotation mark. I'm going to close that parentheses up and press enter. Now, my formula looks a little different in row 3 than it does in row 4. This is pretty clear as to what campaign 1, where campaign 1 lives in our world. Now, by the way, this is dynamic, so I'm actually going to drag this down first. If I pull row 7 underneath row 8, for instance, that formula changed. It went from Q1 to Q2. I'll show you again. If I close this up, you can see campaign 5 actually isn't under Q1 anymore. I have to indent it again. Now it's Q1. I'll drag it down. And now we can see it's Q2. So it's pretty powerful in terms of being dynamic and always up to date. So if you do have to push a campaign out of Q1, Ancestors is automatically going to account for that. All right. Any questions before we convert this to a column formula?
Nope.
No, great.
So usually what you're probably used to, and actually I forget to do sometimes because it is so new, is that you're probably used to just dragging down and bringing that formula with you. We don't have to do that anymore. I'm going to right-click on a cell that has the formula that I want throughout the entire column. And I am clicking on the cell, not the column header. It's a little deceiving. Your natural inclination is to click the column header to do this. But because you built the formula in the cell, right-click on the cell and come down to the bottom to convert to formula. You can always learn more if you ever don't have access to this video, but I'm going to click Convert to Column Formula. And when I do, a few things have now changed. Number one, I'm going to zoom out. This entire column now has my formula running through it, which is really nice. Number two, you're going to see a little FX at the top of the column now, meaning it is a column formula. And it's going to give you what that formula is. We're joining ancestors at that row, which is really powerful now that we're leveraging that. So it can be a little bit more agnostic. And number three, and what I find the best about this column formula, initially I thought it was frustrating, but then I thought that's brilliant. I'm the owner of this sheet. I can't change this formula right now. I cannot, even myself, accidentally overwrite this. So there's not even a reason for me to lock that column. You have to do a lot of work to accidentally remove that formula. You have to right-click, edit column formula, which means I just edit that cell and can change potentially. If I want dashes instead of asterisks, everything changes. Or I convert to cell formulas, and now everything can be amended. So that's pretty cool that you get that kind of security around that as well. Any questions on column formulas?
I have a problem in converting because I don't know why it says that I cannot convert because the syntax in the formula is not properly correct. Consult the article, blah, blah, blah. I don't know because I have the formula in the cell, but it doesn't convert into column formula. I don't know.
Would you please paste the formula into the chat?
Yeah.
And then I'll take a look at the formula.
I don't know if it could be the Italian language that makes some mess. I don't know. You know, it says convert to formula. I know. I'm sorry. It's okay. You cannot.
Yeah, no, I can see it. I'm first going to try and troubleshoot this. My first question to you is, before you converted to a column formula, did that formula work?
Yeah, it does.
Excellent. Okay.
So if I copy in all the cell, it works. If I pull down the corner, it works, but it doesn't convert to formula.
Interesting. And what did you say the error was?
It says, I don't know if I can snapshot to you. I don't know if I can put image in here. No, I cannot. Okay. And it says that the syntax is not properly correct. It says not properly correct. And it gives me a link to this. I can put it to you. Sorry, I'm making this sometimes. Okay. This is the link they gives to me, which they suggest me to solve the problems in this way.
All right, so it says, because I'm looking at your formula and I do notice that you are using a semicolon instead of a comma, which I think is common in Europe. So that's not what I'm worried about.
I think it will be really problem language because I found some other problem language in other formulas. So the translation, the fact that it's using, the dot and comma instead of comma, and probably.
Got it. Okay. All right. So
change the language. Change the language and try again.
Maybe. Okay. Well, what's most important is that I'm glad that the formula works for you if you drag it down. For a little bit of security, I would lock it And then you and I maybe can troubleshoot after the class and
Yeah,
see if
that's
there's
right.
anything
That's
else.
right. Okay.
Okay. All right. And Patty, everything worked just fine for you, right?
Yep, everything worked good.
Beautiful. All right. So we have this column, and that's going to help guide us through some reports. I'm going to go back to those activities now. We're now going to make some reports for our campaigns. So there are 3 we're going to make. Have you made reports before in Smartsheet?
Yeah.
I haven't.
You have not. Excellent. All righty. So the first thing that we're going to make is a delayed campaigns report. And a report is essentially just you're choosing to pull a filter out of your sheet. It is bidirectional, which is really powerful. So if you make a report and there are certain sharing permissions that go with reports, you are able to just leverage it. You are also able to pull multiple sheets into one report. And we can do that in this instance, because we're working at a program level, it's a little different. If you're working at a project level, you can pull in all of your red items across multiple sheets, which can be pretty cool. So let's build that delayed campaign report right now. Excellent. And I'm a pretty visual learner, so I'm also going to take a quick peek at this. So I'm going to make sure that what I build matches this right now. All right. So I am going to suggest you do this alongside me, especially because you haven't made these before. And Alessandro, if you have any questions as we're building it, please ask aloud.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go home. And again, this has the potential to change soon. I'm going to go into my campaign for management sheet, and I'm going to go into my reports folder. We have active and recent and upcoming campaigns. We're eventually going to amend those, but for this delayed campaigns report, we're going to start from scratch. So I'm in my reports folder. In this big white space, I'm going to right click. When I do, I'm going to come down to report. Then I'm going to title this delayed campaigns. Now, there are 2 types of reports, row report and summary report. We are just going to be focusing on row reports today. We are not going to be focusing on sheet summary reports. So we're going to leave that radio button where it is and press OK. A new report is going to be made, and I'm going to click on it. When you open up a brand new report, your report builder is going to appear. Now, you can always navigate back to this, so don't think it's just a one and done deal. Before you build any type of report, you have to choose where it's coming from, and I'm going to click on that. I have a lot of information in my Sheets folder. I'm sure if you just typed marketing campaign tracking, oops, you'll have a few less than I do. So I'm going to choose this one and then click Save. So I just want to pull information from this single sheet. Next, I also want to find out what campaigns are delayed. So by that sentence, what do I want to find out? If a campaign is delayed. Now, that is the answer to this question. Eventually, we're going to go on to a who and a when. We can go, to a who and a when, and we're definitely going to utilize the when later. What's are going to pull text number and drop-down columns and other single select columns. So if you have maybe like a red flag and you put a red flag next to some of your campaigns, if there's something that you want to happen, those little Boolean symbols can also appear here, but I digress. Our what today is going to be that campaign status. And I'm going to click it. And here I get to choose. What do I want to pull in? I want to pull in anything that's delayed. What's inside the parentheses? That's letting me know how many times Smartsheet found the word complete, canceled, delayed in our campaign status column of our marketing campaign tracking sheet. So we titled this delayed campaigns. I'm going to click delayed campaigns. I'm going to click close. Then I'm going to click run. And I want everyone to do this with me. Excellent. And I'm going to close out of this. So I know campaign 7 is delayed. I know campaign 9 is delayed. And I know they are coming from this sheet name. I know they're coming from this sheet. This is a hyperlink. We'll talk about that in a moment. But given these two pieces of information, is that helpful?
No.
Thank you for your honesty. You are absolutely right. It is not helpful in the least. So we need to add more information, but we don't want to filter by that information. So I'm not going to add more information into those buckets of the report builder. So I'm going to click on this blue notebook, and that's my report builder again. I still want to know what is delayed in out of all of my campaigns. We're going to come to this columns button. Now I get to choose some other data. In our activity, we have some things that we talk about that might be useful, but if you're thinking of campaigns, I mean, you could clearly cheat and go look at the activities, that's fine. What information is going to be helpful for you to know if a campaign is delayed?
Start and end.
Yeah, start and end. Those are good.
Who is responsible of the delay?
Also true. So I want to know what team is working on that and who let that drop. Those could be helpful. We happen to have a notes column, so if there was anything about why the delay happened, we can pull that in. And if you want, we probably want to know what channel and what the content type is. So I'm going to click close now and run again. And then I'm going to close out of this. So Patty, for your honesty, does this look more informative than it did before?
Yes, much more informative.
Excellent. So what's nice about these that I may or may not have completely rushed through in our dashboards class, and I'm glad I have both of you here to apologize again, but you can rearrange this in the best order you see fit. For me, start dates and end dates can be a little bit skinnier. I'm okay with seeing that information there. I like to think anything that is going to have the most amount of information in it. So notes might have a whole paragraph of what the delay, what's the reason for the delay. I like to drag that to the end. And the reason is if you have played with reports on a dashboard before, this column is going to expand to fit the space.
May I ask you something?
Of course.
When in your personal experience, you do use notes instead of comments of the row?
Notes could be used as like a blanket update. So you could, and if you look here, you can have comments. You might have a few comments here, question, post it, and then maybe someone replies, reply here, and you have a conversation with someone and you resolve the issue.
Okay.
Can't spell today.
So it's more like data information, the notes that you can visualize. It's just on and off. I mean, it's...
Yeah, so in the example I'm saying here is that issue documented here, whatever it is. I think it truly does depend on preference. I like the conversations that you can have in comments, but I do like the visual presentation that Notes has physically on each row, especially when you are looking at a report because you're pulling in that pertinent information. So I think it ends up being a people question more than a process question, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, of course. Did that help?
Yeah, surely.
Excellent. All right. I always want to make sure that my answers help. Sometimes they confuse. Beautiful. So this information is a lot easier. And Patty, because you haven't used reports before, and Alessandro, I don't know if you know this, if you click directly on this sheet name, it is going to take you to the row that was pulled in that report. Now, we only have 19 rows in our sheet right now, so it wouldn't be that hard to find campaign 9 in our sheet. But if you think about if you have a 200 row sheet, you don't want to have to go sifting through items. You can definitely navigate very quickly using that hyperlink, not only bring you directly to the sheet from where you pulled the information, but directly to the row. So it's a pretty neat tool. And as neat as it is, I like to remove it. I know that sounds really funny, but I think that this ends up looking like redundant and cluttered information. So you can do one of two things. One, you can remove it altogether. And don't worry, you can always come back to the columns and put the sheet name back in. You're never going to lose it forever. I happen to be a person that likes to just hide things. I like them still there. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this. The next thing I'm going to ask that you do with me is change the primary name here. I'm going to right-click on this column, and it says Rename Column. I can rename this, and I'm going to call this Campaign Name, and click OK. The primary column is the only column that you can rename in a report, and that's because when you are reporting across multiple sheets, you want to make sure your column headers are identical. Primary columns are just those special columns. So if you want to hone in on what the point of your report is a little bit more, I mean, I could have even titled this Delayed Campaigns and got the same point across, and I didn't have to call it task name or whatever is on our original report. All right. So we've gone over reports a little bit. Do either of you have any questions?
I'm good.
No, it's okay.
Excellent. So let's take 5 minutes, and I want you to build the active and recent campaigns report. You are going to have to follow a few of the instructions in here, and note this gray bar, that's going to come up. So I am going to throw you a little bit to the wolves. That's okay. And then we're going to make an upcoming campaigns report as well. And notice we are going to use the when. I am going to be on the line, so I do want you to try these, and then we can go through them together afterwards. Sound like a plan?
Okay.
Excellent. Any questions before we get going? All right. Let's give it a whirl. I'm still on the line if you do need anything.
We have to do the activity of point 3A, B, C. Is it right? Activities and recent campaign reports. You asked to us to do Yeah, this one and this one.
So you are asking about A, B, and C of
Yeah.
which of those activities?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Active unrest and campaign reports. No, I'm the previous point. Probably have to go down. Are we doing upcoming campaign reports? Are we, or what?
Yes.
Sorry, so I got the wrong one.
Okay. No, we were doing both, Alessandro. I'm
Both.
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. For the active and the recent one, how did that go?
Well, I think there are two. I mean, point B and point C. They are two different questions, right? So I mean, or you do point B or you do point C. Am I right, or I'm being confused? I don't know.
Okay. Let's go over that then.
Yeah.
So I'm going to lower everybody's hands. I see, Patty, you raised your hand. Excellent. That meant you were done, right? Beautiful. So let's go into this. Let's look at let's go home. I'm in campaign management for marketing. I was in my reports folder, and we did have some setup for you. If you started from scratch, that's okay. Just know which one that you made. So I'm going to choose active and recent campaigns. So this is the way mine looks. And what we are doing right now, this is going to be something that we can refer to and is a concrete reference a little bit later, because we're going to build a kind of automation that is going to remind us to pull data. And we want to pull data based on anything that is currently running, a campaign that's currently running. So if you are advertising on social media and you are using Hootsuite or Social Sprout to pull those metrics, you want to know, all right, of your campaigns that are active, what kind of hits are you getting? And anything that's recent. So they might not be running anymore, but you still might be getting a few residual likes or other kind of clicks to go along with that. So we want to account for all of that. And that's why we built the report the way we did. So in the instructions, the first step was, and I'm going to zoom in here, make sure that you're pulling from the particular marketing campaign tracking. And Patty, I did see why you asked that question. It looks like it's scoped incorrectly to begin with. The what is we want to know if it is not delayed, not started, and not canceled. And the reason we are using an exclusionary item here is that for whatever reason, people might want to add different items to the campaign status, as frustrating as it could be. Maybe even someone accidentally starts typing in progress and adds 3 S's instead. But we want to make sure that we definitely exclude anything canceled, delayed, or not started. And anything else, if it's not one of those 3 items, pull in the information that we are collecting from that, that we are going to collect from there. So that's the what and why we chose to build it that way. Any questions on that?
Yeah. How did you get the end in the last column?
Right here?
No, in the other one.
Right here?
Yeah.
Excellent. We're going to get to that next.
Sorry. Sorry.
That's
sorry.
okay. That helps me, Alessandro, because that means that you understand what I just asked, so you're ready to go on.
Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. So if we have no questions about why we chose these for our what bucket, the when is what we're doing next. So if the campaign date, and I'm going to click on this, if this campaign starts today or is in the past, Then we want to pull metrics on those campaigns, right? We can't necessarily pull anything else. So if it's in the past or it's today in the way it starts, that's what we want here. But we're going to use and here instead of or. So if the campaign start date is today or is in the past, and the end date is ending today, it's going to end in the future, or it's in the last 30 days, pull it in. And what this does is it narrows down what we're looking for. I'm going to close out of this for a moment. Right now, we have two campaigns that fit that criteria. We'll make that a little shorter. Nope, it's not going to let me. Okay. So we have September 30th. Well, you know what's going to be really helpful if I align these from start to finish. All right, here we go. This begins on September 30th, ends on September 30th, begins on September 1st. So that campaign start date is in the past. It's not today. And the end date for this campaign is in the last 30 days. Does that logic follow for what it could be between these two buckets? All right. So our October plan, our October campaign starts in the past, and it actually hasn't finished yet. So it is in the future. That campaign is still running. So it fits both of these buckets. Now, if we choose one or the other, I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to just remove. So if the campaign start date is today or in the past, we're going to run it. It's going to bring in everything. And that's not helpful to us. January 2020 was so far away, you know, when everything was more normal and as we remember it. 2020, January 2020 so far away. We don't consider that an active or a recent campaign anymore. Therefore, we don't want it on this list. So that campaign, the start date is today or in the past, sure. But in order to start filtering out that other information, and I've got to go sneak peek at what that is, that's why we added in if the campaign end date is today, is in the future, or is in the last 30 days. So if it fits both of these criteria, that means it is active and or a recent campaign that we are still looking to pull metrics from. So when I run this, that's why we only have those two rows. If I actually just delete the start date and run this now, we can't pull, we don't have any metrics for this future campaign. Sure, we have a campaign that ended in the last 30 days, and that's that one in September because September 30th is within 30 days, but this isn't relevant information to us yet. So that's why we specifically carved out the start date being today, in the future, or in the last 30 days. And I will say you do have to put in today because if you put in the future or just the last 30 days, Smartsheet sees that as, okay, from the 23rd of October on or 30 days previous starting from the 21st. So that is why you also have to put in the criteria of today. Did that help clarify anything for you, Alessandro?
Yes, even if I have some problem in the report, because I don't know, it depends on the marketing campaign tracks, because I see the purple line also, and I don't know why. I see 2020, I see Q1 and Q2, and I don't know, there is something that is not working properly.
Okay, here's my
There's
question for
not
you.
a problem. I mean, go on.
Well,
I mean,
no.
I work it out.
Do you have a status associated with those rows?
Oh, let me check.
And do you have a date associated with those rows? I'm going to go back into marketing campaign tracking, and I'm going to add that in. So if I say that my Q4 row is in progress, and if I give it a date of October 1st to October 31st and save it, that row shows up.
Right.
So it might be that either you accidentally moved one of those cards over, or as you were dragging information, you brought it over, which is why that row is coming up for you.
Okay.
So for me, I'm going to delete the campaign status so nothing's in it, and I'm going to delete these end dates. Whatever you're going to delete will work for you. I'm going to save this information, and then I'm going to click this little circular arrow and refresh it. Now that row is gone.
Okay.
Did your rows disappear?
No, but it's all right. I work it out. I work it out. There is something doesn't get on status, campaign status. It's not canceled, it's not delayed, it's not started, but it is blank and it doesn't show, it shows the blank rows. So I don't know why actually, but it's not a problem. I mean, I understand it's a, I mean, if I say in progress, Q1, for example, and I go and run the report, yeah, it says in progress. Why? Let me see. It's not canceled. That's right. So if I say I should write canceled and save, and it should disappear. Exactly. It takes the blank space, the blank status. Probably, let me see. Campaign status. I think I have to check exclude void. I said void, clean. If I say exclude the selected voices and I exclude void, let me see. That's right. It excluded the blank. Sorry, the blank. I have to exclude.
Okay. So you needed to physically check the blank box.
I immediately have to check the blank, otherwise I see it. I don't know why.
I don't know why either. I'm definitely going to bring that back to my team.
I definitely have to switch to English, I think. Because
All right. I'm going to ask Alessandro question, void checked, question mark. Okay. I'm going to ask that of my team because they might know. I haven't heard of that, but also some of my teammates have been working with international versions of Smartsheet a little bit more than I have.
Some questions about that. Yeah, I think.
All right. And everything worked just fine for you, Patty?
Yeah, everything worked out well.
Okay. And do you have any questions about the whole reason that we did both the start date criteria and the end date criteria?
No.
Excellent. All right. Beautiful. Patty, do you work in marketing?
I do.
Excellent. Do you run campaigns?
Yes, I am in marketing automation.
Aha. So all of the marketing automation phrases that I'm going to use in this next section are going to be very familiar to you.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not sure if anyone had any questions about the upcoming campaigns report, but those are truly upcoming, anything that's launching today or in the next 30 days. And maybe, Patty, you can utilize these reports for any automation that you end up having.
Okay, good.
So the next part that we are going to build, I am going to say, is that we are going to figure out a way to automate reminder input to put the analytics data into another sheet. Now, granted, I have mentioned to some of my teammates, I think some of the way the nomenclature for our sheets, the way we are naming our sheets is a little redundant. So if you do have any questions, you're not confused. We just didn't help you. So what we are going to do is we are going to build a process using these blocks. We are going to pull information from all of our marketing automation tools. If you use Marketo, if you use, I mentioned Hootsuite earlier, any of those other programs that is collecting those campaign data points, you might not have a Marketo integration with Smartsheet, with Salesforce, with any other program that you use. And that's okay, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this, we did want to build these solutions around the core product. So if you do have a Marketo Smartsheet integration, this might be a skill that you could leverage somewhere else. It might not be relevant to exactly this purpose for you. So Don is working with Anish. Anish needs to put in all of the analytics. He is the person responsible for going to all of the different marketing tools and pulling out that data. So Anish wants to do it, and I love my teammate Robert for putting this in there, as long as Don makes it easy. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to make sure that we are automating this. Now, this is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be a true update request because we don't want to overwrite any information. We want new information coming in every week. So you can see we're going to copy the form link from a sheet. I'm going to encourage you to do that one alongside me. And then we are going to build automation in another sheet. Bear with me for a moment. I'm going to go into Smartsheet, and I'm just going to show you where we're working. We have our campaign tracking sheet. That's kind of that portfolio management we talked about, moving around cards. We have reports that we can leverage. And then we have metrics. Weekly campaign metrics are different than campaign metrics. I'm going to click weekly campaign metrics. And what this sheet is that each week, for each week ending, Anish needs to put in how many pay-per-clicks we had by the end of this week, how many social media impressions, how many email click-throughs, SEO, and advocacy referrals. So Anish also doesn't need to pull all of that. If we are only running an advocacy referral marketing campaign, we also want him to just focus his time on that, and that's going to be campaign 6. I'm going to zoom out. So this does look a little bit more data heavy, and it is. What you're also seeing are these gray dots, and we're going to use this formula on the campaign metrics sheet. I am going to ask that you follow alongside me during these, the next activity, and I'll tell you when we're going to start. But I wanted to show you where we were going first. Because we're going to pull the form from that sheet, we're going to go back into the campaign tracking sheet, that portfolio where we just started with all the purple. And then we're building an automation inside that originating sheet. All right, so we are starting to flip through 2 different sheets. Any questions about the separation of those sheets right now?
No.
No.
Beautiful. All right, so let's together go to the weekly campaign metrics sheet, and we're going to go copy the form, just the form link, and make sure that you keep that in your copy and paste clipboard. So I'm going to come back here. And just so everyone can watch me, I am in my marketing campaign folder. I am going to click my metrics folder and go to my weekly campaign metrics sheet. Is everyone on this sheet with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. We're going to go to the Forms button in the upper left and go to Manage Forms. This is our weekly campaign metric form. Now, I'm going to click on it. You don't have to. You can click on this form URL, but just to show you what Anish is filling out, we are telling him use the full and exact title of each campaign that he is pulling, what the week ending is, the Friday of that week, and we're letting him know that even if that Friday is a holiday, we want that information. So for whatever campaign that is, and he's going to be told what it is, pull in and let us know what those metrics are. We said campaign 6 had a lot of was an advocacy referral campaign. So he's going to populate just that box. He's going to ignore the other ones for campaign 6. All right. So again, please copy that form URL. Right now it's copied to the clipboard. We are now going to go back to that marketing campaign tracking sheet. So let's everyone navigate back there. I'm actually going to go to my recents. And I'm back. Everyone with me so far?
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. We are now going to go into automation. Have either of you created workflows before?
No.
Sometimes.
All right. This one is a doozy because what we are building was just the report that we went over. We only want this automation to be triggered if the campaign is either active or recent. So we don't want our teammate we don't want Anish getting anything that is from January. We talked about wanting to eliminate those very old campaigns. So Anish is only going to input information that is recent or active. And when you build an automation, there are 3 components. Number 1, a trigger. Number 2, a condition block. And number 3, an action. Now, you don't always have to have a condition. We are going to build 3 today. So we're going to have a fairly long automation workflow. We want this to run every Friday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my trigger and I'm going to zoom in. We don't want this to be triggered when something changes on our sheet. We want this to be indicated by time. So I'm going to click on this drop-down and I'm going to say when a date is reached. Now, this is a simple reminder date-based automation because we are dictating right now, run it one time on a certain date, and that certain date is tomorrow. We want this to be a custom reoccurrence. So instead of running one time, we are going to open up this drop-down and we're going to choose custom. I want this to repeat every week, every 1 week, not every 2 weeks, so every week, and I want this to happen on Friday. Now, by the way, I do recognize that today is Thursday. I'm going to keep Thursday because I want to see if at the top of the hour, when we're done with this class, you might be able to see what that looks like. And even if you have to go, I'll make sure it's on the recording for you. So we want this to run every Friday. And we want that to start today. We also never want this to end. Sure, maybe we could choose if we're going to have a new sheet for 2021 campaigns, we have this end on December 31st or maybe late January, probably late January because we want to still collect 2020 metrics. But for right now, we're going to say this never ends. I'm going to click done. And so I see it. I'm going to make sure that it goes out at 11 a.m. Eastern. Now, I don't know, Alessandro, I know you're based out of Rome. I don't know if you work with people in other time zones. Patty, do
Yeah.
you work with people in other time zones?
Not so much right now, just Eastern.
Okay, great. Not as relevant. The long and the short of what I was going to say is automation is based upon the time zone of the person creating it.
Yeah.
So I'm setting it up at 11 a.m. That means my teammates on the West Coast will get it at 8 a.m. So everyone with me on the same page building that trigger?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. We're going to build the first condition block together. I'm going to scroll down. Now our condition is going to sound very similar to what we put in that report. The condition is going to be if the start date, if the campaign start date, I'm going to go find campaign start date, is in the past, starting to sound familiar, or if the start date is today. And I'm going to click on add another condition. And I'm going to scroll down to start date. I'm going to find is today. Now, I did say the word or. It's very, very important. I need to switch that and to read as or. So if the campaign start date is in the past or it is today, that's the first part of the trigger that I want to pull in. Questions on that condition block?
No.
Patty, you're good?
I'm good.
Excellent. Let's build that second condition block. I'm going to click the blue plus button. And I am going to add a condition. We are going to say something based around the end date. So if the campaign end date is in the last 30 days, and I get to enter that value of 30. If the campaign end date, I'll scroll up here, if the campaign end date, and I have to go find that, is today, and then if the campaign end date is in the future. Sounding very familiar to what we talked about in that report, right? Here's the kicker. I also have to switch this condition block to or. So I'm going to click on that and button and everything switches to or. So that's block number 2. Questions before we build block number 3?
No, I'm good.
You cannot use or and at the same time. I see the when
Correct.
you switch or and so you have to make multiple conditions probably to have different options.
Exactly. In order for us to link these dates the way we did in the report. So in the report, we said if the campaign start date and the campaign end date reach any of these criteria, pull it in. That doesn't exist for this automation, which is why we have built these levels of conditions. You're exactly right. So I'm going to add that third condition. And this one's going to be about the campaign status. So I'm going to say where the campaign status is not one of not started, delayed, or canceled. And that's the easiest block we're going to build. All right. So I'm going to zoom out really far for a second. This is a long automation, but to Alessandra's point, we have a start date information. We want to use or. We have end date information where we want to use or, but to link those two, we need to make them separate. And then just as we made a separate bucket for our report in the what bucket versus the when bucket, that's why we have these 3 blocks. Any more questions before we build that action?
No.
No.
Excellent. I'm going to zoom back in. And I am going to say we are going to alert someone. Now, in reality, this is going to be you. And in our case, it's going to be Anish. You could just put you today if you don't want to copy and paste the information in the instructions. And I emphasize that you don't right now because we have a copy and paste link that we're going to use. So I'm going to customize this message. And here I'm going to call this campaign alerts form. And just to make sure it's out of my system, I'm going to do Control V right now. So that form lives in my automation. I'm going to go home and then I'm going to write Anish a nice little note. Hi, Anish. Please use this link to fill out Excellent. I'm giving Anish directions as to what I need him to do and providing that form. Now, we do want to give Anish the link to the sheets and all of the fields. We want him to know exactly what information he is going to have to pull. He's going to have to search for each of those campaign names in the right channels, what have you. So we could also specify the fields. I don't think we need to, but we definitely don't want to use the message only. We want Anish to know exactly what information he needs to pull. So I'm going to click Save. One or more recipients is blocked. How do I fix this? Well, that's because I forgot to do one thing. I'm going to click How do I fix this? And I'm going to go to the settings. Automation permissions do exist on the sheet. They do start as the most restricted. You can open them up. Anish is part of my account. So if I wanted, I could make sure that this goes out to him. But Anish isn't even shared to my sheet, which is a good point to bring up. I'm setting up an automation based upon a sheet he is not shared to, but I'm asking him to put information somewhere else. That's still okay. All of my data is still intact and Anish is still going to be able to do his job. I'm going to choose unrestricted now for ease and click OK. And then I'm going to click Save. Now Smartsheet was able to say, all right, you did everything right, Amy. One thing that I didn't do, was I didn't title my workflow. I suggest that you title your workflows. You can save them as untitled. It will save you a lot of headache later if you save the title of your workflows first. All right. So we walked through that step by step together. We're asking Anish to populate data. Everyone is able to follow alongside me, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Beautiful. Let's go make that data. And this is going to be the cool one. We're going to prepare the data for a dashboard. We already have a dashboard set up for you. So unlike the other class where we're building from scratch, we have some information pulling in there. We're going to make a few calculations. We want to understand the data week over week. So we're going to make a grid of this information using a formula of SUMIF. And then we want to understand the data month over month. That's going to give us a moving trend line. We're going to build a moving trend line report, and then we're going to look at it on the dashboard. But these two items are the most important ones, I think, that are going to drive our campaign sheet. And fortunately, we've got a good amount of time for that. So, are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go back into my house. I'm going to go into my campaign marketing sheet. And in my metrics folder, I'm now going to go into my campaign metrics sheet. I'm going to zoom out. So your sheet should look like mine, big purple blocks. As you can see, I like to color code. So if I'm working on campaigns, it's all going to be purple. The first one we're going to do is week over week at row 20. We're going to calculate our week over week data starting at row 20. So what do I want to do? And you don't have to follow me as I go through these two things. I'm actually going to add this here. All right. I want in the chart on the left, I want to know all of my campaign metrics for the week ending in Friday, January 3rd. That means I have campaign 1 here, and I want to know how many pay-per-clicks I have, and I want that to automatically total up here. There are other data points that I also want to pull in, and as you can see, these are out of order, and that's okay. But I also want campaign 5 that we have pay-per-clicks to also total up in this row so that we have an aggregate understanding of all of the pay-per-clicks that happened that week. So I'm going to pull this back in and maximize this again. We're going to make a few cross-sheet references. I'm going to zoom in really tight, and then I am going to ask that you watch me, and then I'm going to give you a chance to build one of the columns. I don't think you're going to have all of the time in the world to create all of them today, but that's okay. You're going to watch me do one, and then you're going to build your own. I'm going to start with an equal sign, and I'm going to type SUMIF. Now, SUMIF, we want to total up information that reaches a specific criteria. So the range that I want to look for, the cells that I want to evaluate, are actually not on this sheet. They're in that other sheet that we just talked about. So what I have to do is I have to click on this link to reference another sheet. I have to go find weekly campaign metrics sheet. Excellent. Weekly campaign metrics, that's it. And I'm going to click on this column header. Now we have set up some cross-sheet references for you. This one is titled week ending. That's great. I am going to insert that reference. So again, for the record, the range that we are looking in is this week ending column on a separate sheet. All right. The criteria that I'm looking for, so I'm going to hit comma, and the criteria that I'm looking for is the week ending at that row. So if you see 1-3, that's my criteria. I want you to now total a different range. So I'm going to reference another sheet. Smartsheet is going to bring me back to the weekly campaign metrics. And now I'm going to click on pay-per-click header. Notice it says PPC pay-per-click, and then I'm going to insert the reference. So my formula reads as thus. I'm going to zoom out for just a second. There we go. I want to total up the pay-per-clicks if the week ending ends in 0103. Great. And by the way, I think I said before when we were talking about those weekly campaign metrics, I'm going to toggle back to my other sheet where I got this information from. We had two campaigns that we had, oops, excuse me, hiccup. We had Anish pull information from. And look, 10 plus 164 is 170, excuse me, 10 plus 164 is 174. And that's the data that we got here. Now I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way for a particular reason. I'm going to click on that little square and drag it down. Now, each time Anish adds new information, and you can see we haven't had a pay-per-click in a while, each time Anish adds new information, all of that will total up automatically. Excellent. Any questions on what we've created here?
No, I'm good.
No, it's okay.
Excellent. I'm going to ask that you create this formula for the social media column. So the front is similar. The back is going to be a little different. You have to reference another column. Let's take 2 minutes to do that.
All right, I've done.
Excellent. All right, so let's keep going. I did it over here on my other screen as well, so I'm just going to refresh. And as you can see, I have now a total. Forgot that made a noise if I wasn't on it, so all of a sudden my headphones, I had it beeping. But I digress. So the pay-per-clicks that we have, pay-per-clicks we so far have this year are using a sum children formula. That's another hierarchy function that's really fabulous. You are totaling the children of the current row you are in. And that means that I have 7,779 pay-per-clicks. If you built the social media one, you probably have the identical number that I do, that is 4,992.
Great.
So how do I understand this month over month now? This is where we are going to use a new function called @cell. Now, what I like to think of @cell is that it does something that your brain does automatically, but you physically have to tell the program to do it. I'm going to go back to my weekly campaign metrics sheets first, just to start it, just to show you what I mean. I want to total up all of my information for January. So what I might do is I might create a filter and I might say January. And I'm going to say if my week ending is between excellent. Yep, beautiful. And I'm going to click apply. So I want to know all of my pay-per-clicks for that month, and that total for that single month should be 6,700. So what I just did naturally is I am saying, all right, look in this column, and if the month of January appears in this column, total up these numbers. So that's what I'm kind of starting to do in my head. We have to articulate that for Smartsheet. So that's where @cell comes into play. We told the program, look in week ending, and then look at each cell. So how does that translate into formula speak? We're going to use another SUMIF function. And I'm going to start with equals sum if. The range is still going to be week ending, so I'm going to go find it, select it, and insert that reference. Next is the criteria, and that's where things get a little bit different in this formula. I am going to say if the month, I'm going to use the month formula, hit tab, at cell, I'm going to go outside of these pink parentheses, equals the month, hit tab, at the week ending in this row. Now, by the way, I am going to add, and I encourage you to do the same, a $sign here. So you never deviate from that column. That creates an absolute reference, very similar in Excel. And then close up this parentheses. So my criterion, is this entire formula inside a formula. And what is it saying? It's doing exactly what you and I naturally do when we make a filter. All right, look in the range of the week ending. If the month in that individual cell, I told it to look for January. In our case, we're going to say if that information in that individual cell is equal to the month in this cell, then I want to pull it in. So I'm going to add a comma at the end, and the sum range is going to be my pay per click. I'm going to insert that reference. I'm going to go to the end of my formula, click enter, and I have that 6,700. And as I drag this down through December, I know exactly how many pay per clicks we asked for or we received, I should say, in February, how many we had in April, and then the rest of the year. So this one's a little trickier, so I want to pause here. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't. Nope.
What?
Now, what's? Please explain me again. What's at cell? What's the reference of at cell? It is the month in the week ending in the other sheet in the other sheet. Is it right?
Exactly. You have to think of it like you are commanding Smartsheet to look at each individual cell. So the month in that particular cell,
Okay.
if the month, we're telling Smartsheet to look down the entire week ending column, right?
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to turn this off.
Okay. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are telling Smartsheet to look at each cell.
Okay.
And if it sees that cell is equal to the month here,
okay.
total up that. Did that help, Alessandro?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
All right. Do you guys feel comfortable taking 2 minutes to build this formula on your own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock. All right. How did everybody do on that?
All right.
All right.
Still working on it here.
Okay.
I tried to do the social media impressions, but it doesn't work. I don't know why. Oh yeah, that's right. Now it works.
Now it worked? Excellent.
Yeah. You know, these things of dot and comma and things like this is quite tricky.
That it is. That it is. Now, question for you, Alessandro. When it is giving you the formula builder, for me, it's showing commas here. Does it show semicolons for you instead?
It show you how do you call it? Semicolon.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, dot and comma, yeah, semicolon.
Okay.
Semi-comma, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, got it. I just wasn't sure if your formula builder adjusted as well.
The formula builder, yeah, it's aligned with the language.
Excellent. Did you finish making that, Patty?
I did. I'm good.
Excellent. All right. I'm going to show you guys a quick cheat that's going to make you roll your eyes and ask, why didn't I show you this before? Because I used this absolute reference when building that week ending, I'm going to drag this across. Now, my formula is technically the same right now. I have my week ending here, month at cell, and my pay per click. But now, each time I'm going to change my sum range to be social media. Click enter. Instead of pay per click, I'm going to change that to be email marketing. There are email click-throughs. And now, because I just did those two, I can drag that down. So I have some information there. Excellent. I'm going to save because Smartsheet's telling me I have to. And refresh. Beautiful.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah, so that's a nice little quick way to do it so you can reference those other columns. So what you're also noticing, it looks like redundant information, but it's actually a good, healthy check for us. Week over week, we have a total for the entire year of 2020 of 7,779 pay-per-clicks. And if we come to the top for month over month in January, even though we used a different formula, we're laying out our data differently. We still got the identical number, which is important. We also, right here, are using a very simple formula of pay per click 20. So whatever appears in this cell, we're going to have appear up here, which is why these two match. And as soon as we do calculate email marketing, content marketing, and advocacy, those will also appear. So why do I want to show you this? I'm going to build one report in front of you, and then I'm going to show you a dashboard because I do know we are at the very top of time, and I do want you to see this. So if you do have to leave, I promise this will be on the recording. If you can stay, fabulous. What I'm going to do is I am going to go home. I'm going to go into my folder again, go into that metrics folder, and I'm going to go into this report, metrics for the last 30 days. You thought we were done with reports, but we were not. What we are going to see right now is that we don't have any criteria filling in. So I want to use this report builder, and I'm going to click on it. I want to say we're still scoping to this single sheet, but if the month/year is blank, bring it in. So month/year, if it is blank, I want to bring it in. The other thing that I want to do is I want to add those metrics in here because if you've noticed, now I'm starting to get those grids. I'm going to say I want to add the columns pay per click, social media, email marketing, advocacy, content, SEO. Excellent. All right. I also want to know if my week ending is in the last 30 days. And I'm going to run it. This is going to give me the metrics for just what has happened in the last 30 days. And as you can see, it's nothing. That's okay. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go home, back into that sheet. We're going to go into that metrics folder, and we're going to look at the campaign metrics dashboard right now. This already has information populating for us. We have campaign metrics by year. We did not get to finish everything for 2020, all of the other lines, but you can see our pay-per-click trends from 2018 to 2019 and 2020. That was one that we calculated. Our social media one was also one that we calculated and we see going up. I didn't calculate these last three, which is why they're zeros, and that's why our graph didn't react properly. And as you know, if I edit this widget, the data that I chose is this box, 2018 through 20, all the way over to advocacy. And I have those titles set up right there because my column headers are the appropriate marketing channel. There are some other things we have on here. You can see your campaign metrics by month. We did that in our dashboards class. We're able to see what those months are. And you built that line chart, but we built the formula that drives it today. We have our active and campaign report. So here, campaign 12 and 13, those are the ones that are currently active. And we have our upcoming campaigns as well. This was something we did throw in there. Calendar is an app. It is an additional fee for Smartsheet. So this is another, we embedded this through a web content widget. But if you wanted, you could click on this calendar and see what's going on here. It's just another visual representation of how we look at data. And by the way, I'm going to bring over my inbox. Our campaign alert came through for Anish because we sent it at 11 o'clock today. So Anish, use this link to fill out the information needed for every active and recent campaign. So Anish knows he has to fill out information for campaign 11 and 12. And there's our channel and our content type. So he fills out information regarding email marketing for campaign 11 and advocacy for 12. So that is everything we went through today. We visualized our program. We were able to calculate and show that quarter and year on each row. And as you saw in the dashboard itself, that was really helpful for us to anchor what we were looking at in those reports. We built those reports that live on the dashboard. We made a workaround for asking for information for just the relevant campaigns. And then we calculated all that information on our dashboard using some pretty cool formulas. I do thank you both for staying on 5 minutes past the top of the hour. I do realize that I have gone over, so if you do have to run, good luck with all of your Smartsheet endeavors. But if you want to stay on the line for a little bit longer, I can answer some questions for you.
Oh, it's okay for me.
Yep, I'm good. Thank you for the training.
Thank
Excellent.
you. I
You're
would
welcome.
just to try to understand maybe by myself about this formula problem. I mean, I want
The column formula.
yeah,
Yes.
the column formula. Yeah, well, because that was quite useful. And
Yeah.
I have yeah. So
Okay. I'm going to find out about that for you too. Excellent. All right, Alessandro,
Okay.
Patty, have a lovely
you.
rest of your week.
All right,
Happy
thank
almost
you.
weekend.
You too.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Take care.
Thank you. See you in
Bye-bye.
the next one. Bye. Bye.